There are moments in history that, on paper, just shouldn't have happened. This is one of them. We're going to explore one of World War II's great mysteries. How did a small, supposedly undisciplined force of Australian soldiers absolutely terrify the legendary desert fox, Erwin Rommel, and his elite Africa Corps? The answer? Well, it's not just surprising, it literally rewrites the rules of modern warfare.
Okay, so picture this. We're in the vast, scorching emptiness of the North African desert. November 1941. We're at the coastal fortress of Tobruk, this one critical strategic point that's about to become the stage for a brutal, months-long siege.
And the situation for the guys defending it looks completely hopeless. 14,000 Australians totally cut off with their backs to the sea. They are outnumbered, they're outgunned, they're running out of food, and they have even less water. Rommel's panzers have them in a chokehold, and according to every military playbook ever written, their fight is already over.
But then, something strange starts to happen. German soldiers in the forward trenches, they just start disappearing. Not in some big firefight, but silently, somewhere between midnight and dawn. The survivors are whispering about ghosts, about phantoms rising right out of the sand. So what was really going on out there in the dark?
To solve this mystery, you first have to understand how the world saw these men. Because it turns out both their enemies and their allies were making the exact same absolutely critical mistake. Yeah, there was this huge disconnect. The official military view, and I mean from both the British and the Germans, was that the Australians were just undisciplined colonials. Literally a rabble in uniforms. But the reality? Oh, it was something else entirely. These weren't city boys playing soldier. These were men from the Outback, one of the harshest environments on Earth.
And look, Rommel himself totally bought into this stereotype. As he wrote before the siege, he fully expected these colonial troops to just break, and break easily under pressure. That single assumption would turn out to be one of the biggest miscalculations of his entire career.
And here's the secret, the real twist in the story. What the military establishment saw as a weakness, this lack of formal parade ground discipline, was actually their greatest weapon. See, their real training didn't come from some stuffy academy. It came from a lifetime of just trying to survive.
Just think about the skills these guys brought with them. The Outback had taught them how to track animals over hard rock, how to move without making a sound, and how to navigate using the stars, not maps. They knew instinctively that the cool of the night was for hunting, while the brutal heat of the day was for rest. These weren't military tactics you learn in a book. These were life skills.
And this gave them a massive psychological edge. While the European soldiers saw the desert as this hostile, alien landscape, the Australians, they felt kind of at home. The heat, the dust, the sheer emptiness, it was all familiar. To them, this wasn't punishment. It was just their hunting grounds, maybe a little drier than usual.
Now this is where their commander, a general named Leslie Morshead, made an absolute genius move. Instead of trying to force these hunters to fight like conventional soldiers, he did the complete opposite. He let them fight like hunters. He decided to weaponize their natural instincts.
And this wasn't chaos. Oh no. This was a disciplined, grand new form of warfare, the silent raid. The rules were simple, and they were deadly. You crawl inhumanly close, we're talking 20 to 30 meters. You use only quiet weapons. You attack when the enemy is at their groggiest, between 2 and 4 a.m. And then you just vanish, melt back into the night.
You gotta love this part. The British High Command, sitting comfortably back in Cairo, was furious. They saw these raids as unauthorized, reckless, foolish adventures, and they ordered Morshead to stop immediately. So what did he do? He read their telegrams, calmly filed them away, and then sent another team out the very next night. He trusted his men way more than he trusted the rulebook. The results of this incredible defiance was, well, it was staggering. These hunters weren't just surviving the siege, they were actively turning the tables on one of the most feared and effective armies in history.
The data, it just tells an unbelievable story. German units that were facing standard British positions had a casualty rate of about 12%. But the units facing the Australians, their casualty rates shot up to over 70%. Just think about that for a second. 7 out of every 10 men sent to that part of the line became a casualty. The difference was absolutely terrifying.
Even the desert fox himself had to admit it. He finally got it.
He finally understood what he was really up against, writing in his personal diary that he wasn't fighting soldiers who followed a doctrine. No, he was fighting hunters who fought purely by instinct, which made them completely, dangerously unpredictable. And the impact, it went way beyond just physical casualties. The morale of Rommel's elite Afrika Korps completely shattered. His soldiers started refusing to do night duty. Sick leave requests actually doubled as men desperately tried to get away from the Australian sector. They stopped calling them soldiers. They called them devils. And it wasn't an insult. It was a description of what they saw. And here's the ultimate proof, the real kicker. Rommel, a general famous for his relentless aggression, did the unthinkable. He ordered his entire front line to pull back 2 to 3 kilometers away from the Australian positions. The besieged were now pushing back the besiegers, forcing them to give up ground without even fighting a major battle. So what happened in Tobruk didn't stay in Tobruk. The legacy of these men, who the Germans had nicknamed the Rats of Tobruk, would go on to change the very nature of modern combat forever. I mean, the influence was direct and it was immediate. Within just months, elite units like the British Commandos and the U.S. Rangers were requesting Australian officers to come train them. The silent raid became standard practice, and today, the core principles pioneered by those Outback hunters are foundational for pretty much every elite special forces unit on the planet, from the Navy SEALs to the SAS. So what's the big takeaway here? The story of Tobruk is this incredible lesson that real strength isn't about rigidly following a plan. It's about adapting to reality and using the unique strengths you actually have. The Australians didn't try to be better European soldiers. They became what they already were, hunters who just happened to find themselves in the middle of a war. And it all leaves us with one last question to chew on. The German army had a discipline that was taught in the finest military academies in the world. The Australians had a discipline that was forged by one of the world's most brutal landscapes. And in the darkness of Tobruk, we found out which one was stronger.